Hey, fifth graders, Mrs. Bierman here. This is an art project that Mrs. Buckman and I are kind of doing in conjunction with each other. So since you don't have Mrs. Buckman for music for the rest of this year, and I have lots of time with the fifth and sixth graders, she and I are working together on one of her very favorite music assignments or music units that she would normally do with fifth grade. So we're going to be listening to, and you're going to be listening to, the Grand Canyon Suite by Ferde Graffe, which is a 5-movement piece about the Grand Canyon. So as you listen to the different movements, hopefully you're visualizing some different things and you're going to be creating artwork based on the different movements. So when we're all done, you should have 5 different pieces of art. Some of them are going to be more in depth and take a little bit longer, and some of them are going to be quite short, like the one that you're going to work on today. So we're going to create a couple things with chalk pastels. So if you haven't come to pick up your materials from the high school, please make sure you come and pick them up because you will need the chalk pastels for this project. So you're also going to need a piece of 9 by 12 piece of white piece of drawing paper, and you're going to need some scrap paper as well. The scrap paper, you can use any of the construction paper that I sent home, but you want it to be the same width as this white paper when held horizontally. I can't share my screen with you, and I don't have any pictures of the Grand Canyon to show you, but I do encourage you to look up the Grand Canyon National Park, and I do encourage you to look at the different shapes and different lines that you see within this canyon. You're going to see a horizon line with many different lines. You're going to see some very jagged, rough edges, and then some very smooth plateaus where the landscape levels off. Then it can go back down and back up and so forth. You're going to see all of these different shapes and lines in those pieces. And we're going to create some of those lines on this orange paper now. So what you're going to do, you can draw it first, you don't have to, but what you're going to do is you're going to sketch, I'm going to try to do this upside down, but you're going to sketch some of those jagged lines and then the flat plateaus, and then you'll go back down. And then you'll come back up in a different way and it will level out into a plateau again and come back down. You can do maybe 2 or 3 different ones on this orange paper. This is going to be the top of your paper, and the top of your paper is the keeper. Make sure you keep the top of this paper. This can all be thrown away. You're going to do that 2 times. You're going to try to come up with 2 different ones, and you can work a little smaller. If you want to, you can have more of them, or they can just be longer plateaus for you. That is something totally up to you. But again, this is the top, and this is what you want to keep up here. This gets thrown away. Once you have that, you have 2 options. You can cut these out, and you don't have to follow exactly on the lines. You might have some lines that you don't really like, but you're going to follow on those lines, and you're going to cut out that silhouette of the Grand Canyon, of some of those edges. When I put it here on my paper, you're going to see that the positive space is the white. So you want to see those plateaus in white. If you want to try something a little bit more natural, you can also try to tear the paper, which sometimes proves to be very difficult. I like having the guideline there for me because I try to follow that line that I have, but it's not super easy to do. It does create a more natural look when you're all done. But most of my 5th graders did choose to cut theirs, although I did have a couple brave souls that did do tearing. What I want you to do is I want you to make sure you have 2, remember we keep the top, 2 or 3 different pieces so that we have some diversity and difference in our lines. Okay, so once you have that, now comes the fun part. And again, look at the pictures of the Grand Canyon and check out the colors that you see in the canyon itself. You're going to see that farther off into the background, you're going to have darker browns, gets maybe some lighter browns and some golds. You'll see some reddish colors, orangish colors, but you're going to now get ready to add that chalk pastel. So this is the really cool part. We're going to take one of the chalk pastels that I sent home with you, and I'm just going to lightly rub it along the edge of my scrap paper. Just lightly rubbing it along the edge. You might remember in 3rd grade, we did something similar with some Chinese landscapes. This is very similar to that. I'm just grabbing a tissue. You are going to need a tissue for the next part, although you could use your fingers. I'm putting my orange paper back a little bit more than halfway. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pull that chalk towards you. And you're pulling it right on to the white paper itself. And once I've gone all the way across and I've held it down really well, I remove the brown and you're left with this very cool horizon and that really cool outline. You're going to try to do that 5 times. So I'm going to take another one that I created. I don't want to see any white through there, so I'm going to scooch this down until I don't see any white left. And I'm going to pick another brown tone. This time, instead of using dark brown, I'm going to use a dark or a medium brown. It's kind of like a reddish brown. I lightly put that onto my scrap paper, and then I bring that down into the white. And I remove that, and I'm left with layer number 2. I could use this one again, but to make it a little bit different, I'm going to flip my paper. I'm going to bring it down a little bit further, find another color that's appealing to you, reds, oranges, golds, yellows, whatever I sent home, you are welcome to use. But just remember, you don't need to press hard with that pastel. A little bit goes a long way. So you're seeing all of these different layers of shapes and of plateaus. Okay? Doesn't that look so cool? It's always like this awesome, like, whoa, when the kids do it for the first time here at school. So enjoy doing that. When you're all done with your 5 layers, you're then going to think about the sunset. So you can go ahead and get rid of all your scrap papers and your dirty tissue. You still might need a tissue to work with, but now you're going to be thinking about the sunrise itself. Now, this is the piece where you get to choose colors. The only color I would say that I would like you to use is yellow for the actual sun. So when you listen to Ferde Graffé's piece, The Sunrise Movement, if you remember, it started really slow and quiet. There was just maybe one oboe or one flute playing. And then as it built up, or as the movement kept going, it got a little bit louder with more instruments layered on top of each other. And what we kind of discussed here in class is that the beginning of the piece is still dawn. The sun hasn't come up all the way yet. It's still very light and it's dark out. It's very quiet. The birds haven't woken up. The animals, everybody's still sleeping. It's quiet. And then as you start to see a little bit of light on the horizon, it's when the movement gets a little louder. And then maybe the sun peaks over the horizon, and it's when that layer is building and building. Then all of a sudden, about 3, maybe 4 minutes into that movement, you hear this huge, gigantic sound of all these instruments together. And one of the kids in class said, it's when the sun appears, or it's like the full sun. It's up. You can see the whole thing above the horizon. So the sun is there, but the sky is up to you. A sunrise isn't instantaneous. It is gradual. And there's different colors as the sun rises. So you might have a sky with all warm colors, all yellows and oranges and reds. Or you might just see the yellow sun and you'll still see the light blues or purples in the sky. That is up to you. But let me just show you a couple quick techniques and then you can do this on your own. So you could do the whole sun out, so the whole sphere, the whole circle of the sun, or you might see the sun just peeking out on the edge of the horizon here. When you use chalk pastels, you don't want to press really hard. If you notice you are creating dust, you are going to want to either tap that off on the table or into a garbage can. If there's not a lot of dust, you can go ahead with your finger and just start blending with your finger. If you want more exact lines, your finger is the way to blend. If you want it to be softer and more smeared, that's when the tissue comes in. So I'm starting with my yellow. Again, you can experiment with this on your own. I'm going to bring in some orange. I'm going right up against the edge of those mountain shapes. And I'm going to go ahead and blend that with my finger. If I don't think my yellow is dark enough or my orange is dark enough, I can go back in there and I can blend even more and pull it out even more. So now it's up to you. So now once I'm around those mountains and out here in the sky away from the sun, now it's up to you what you want those colors to look like. So if you're going to fill in a large area, so let's say you want a lot of blue up in here at the top. If you take a pastel on its flat edge, not a point, you don't want lines of color, and you just lightly press. Now I'm seeing dust already. If you have a large area like this, I will say a tissue is your best bet. But you might be left with a texture there that you don't really like. If you're left with lines you don't like in there, you can go back over it and add another layer of color. You can even add colors on top of colors. So you can do a dark blue on top of that lighter blue, or you can throw in a purple or a pink or whatever you'd like to do. Really, this is up to you to experiment and to decide what colors you like best. Okay, but go ahead and create a sky and a sunset that is reflective of that piece of music that you listened to by Ferde Graffé. Okay, have fun doing that. Don't forget to submit your pictures when you are done with the project, and we will continue on through the movements. You can look forward to the painted desert movement next. I have some exciting things to do with paint for that project. And I guess that's about it. So enjoy creating that piece of art, and I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.